fight. We don't have to kill. Everybody in the whole wide world really just needs to chill. No, we don't have to fuss, no.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Just Chill with Oliver George. This is episode 114, and it's also the season 5 finale episode. And we're going out with a bang on this one, I got to say, because we have a bona fide Canadian legend here in the studio. But before we get into it, I want to remind you, if you are watching this on YouTube and you would prefer an audio-only version, you can get that on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, and other places like that. If you are listening to my voice on one of those platforms, though, and you didn't realize there was a visual side to the show, I'd implore you to please come over here and check it out on YouTube. Even if you plan on just listening still, hitting that subscribe button really does help. We don't have a Patreon or anything like that, so it's the best way to directly support the show. If you're just stopping in for the first time, or maybe you've been a longtime viewer or listener, I really do appreciate it either way. If you want to reach out, maybe you've got a cool guest idea or some general feedback about the program, you can hit me up on social media or send me an email at justchillpodcasting@gmail.com. Now, back to the guest, as I mentioned, an absolute legend. I don't think there's a comedian in this great nation of ours that is more well-known and beloved than this man. From the shores of Nova Scotia, or Newfoundland, I guess is even further
Nova
out.
Scotia. My dad's a Newfoundlander. I was born in Cape Breton. Left there when I was in grade 3. Raised in Halifax. So I had Newfoundlander. I've got a Newfoundland and Cape Breton pedigree.
I knew you were from Nova Scotia. I was more just trying to say that across this entire country, from the shores of Newfoundland, I think we've spoiled who this is, all the way to the Pacific coast of British Columbia and up and through the Arctic tundra. He is known and beloved. You can read about a lot of that in his book, which I'm currently engrossed in, which is called All Over the Map, Rambles and Ruminations of the Canadian Road. It's absolutely delightful, and I cannot recommend this enough.
Oh, thank you.
He's had people in stitches for decades now with his comedy, and he even had 5 seasons of his own show, aptly titled The Ron James Show. If you didn't already guess who it was, it's Ron James. Thank you so much for coming here. It's truly a pleasure.
Thank you very much. Thank you. That's quite an introduction.
How are you doing?
Pretty good, you know. A little tired. Was up early this morning for that CTV interview. And again, I punched in George Street. I didn't realize they were in the Byward Market. I could have walked from the hotel.
Oh, wow.
And Google took me out to Prescott.
Oh, no.
They
Are
did.
you serious?
Honest to God. It's like, okay, let's pull a practical joke on them.
That's a bit of a commute there.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
Well, at least you're in for some unseasonably warm weather here in Ottawa.
Yeah, it is. It's remarkable. It's
strange.
been like that for the last week and everything, too. It's been great to be on the road. I mean...
We're kind of in the sweet spot of global warming, I suppose.
Well, tell that to the Inuit.
Oh, true.
You know, it's a little unsettling. I mean, there's, you know, we're looking into the abyss of so much these days, and you know, it's like I've been saying at the beginning of my show, the world is in the middle of this Mephistophelian clusterfuck where every tongue in the Tower of Babel is flapping with so many conflicting opinions. Any minute I expect to look out the front window and see one of the horses of the apocalypse taking a dump on my deck.
Oh, man.
So just the fact that we can sit shoulder to shoulder in the theater without punching each other in the face, given how polarized the world is. And the comedian has this wonderful opportunity to put everybody on the same page despite their myriad differences, it seems, in this age of anger and polarity, that you know, they can process the daily march through life's bright fury in the language of laughs. And I remember getting on stage shortly after the pandemic lifted. I mean, Omicron was still hanging around, and I was battling this atmospheric river in British Columbia. And I just remember how happy everybody was to be sitting shoulder to shoulder again, you know. And I remember thinking, this is what it's all about. Everything else is just a spoiler on a Dodge Neon.
I swear I had a similar experience where I had gone to a live concert in this kind of dingy, sweaty basement, and it felt so good to be just in that moment with people. Everybody, their phones are away. Everybody's just living. And
it's great to remember
vibing.
that, you know. And, of course, you guys were under siege by that cheap January 6th cover band called The Convoy.
Oh, yeah.
With, you know, holding the nation's capital hostage with diesel fumes, truck horns, and shitty sing-alongs. And I remember watching that and thinking, no. My uncle was in a freedom convoy. It was in 1941, called the Battle of the Atlantic.
Yeah.
When he was in the Corvette Navy, protected merchant marine ships laden with petrol and munitions bound for Russia never knowing when a German's U-boat torpedo was going to plow into his bow and send him to a watery grave at the age of 21, and there was nary a bouncy castle in sight.
Yeah, I was going to say.
So
I think they had sauna or hot tubs too,
whatever
and
they
Monster
had.
Energy drinks.
And numbnuts had this manifesto that wouldn't pass mustered in a grade 7 civics class, were they to still teach civics in junior high and high school.
They don't do that anymore? I took civics in high school, but
Civics
that's
is
20
off
years
the
ago
agenda.
now. Wow.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's a bummer.
I mean, they're not even teaching, I think history is an elective.
Oh, really?
I think so.
I learned a lot of Canadian history when I was in high school, specifically Canadian more than world.
I got into the Canadian history in university.
I was going to say, you were studying to be a history teacher, right?
Well, that's what I'd wanted to. Well, it was the only option to think of when you were getting a Bachelor of Arts.
Yeah.
I mean, in actuality, I majored in binge drinking and hot knives. But I'd love to go back again and really apply myself.
On paper, it was political science and history, though, right?
Yes.
At Acadia?
I had a great prof there by the name of Professor Stokesbury, and he taught World War I and World War II, where they were half credits. And this guy was, a great professor, like a great teacher, can make or break a subject.
Oh, so
and
true.
the man was published several times, and in fact, a buddy of mine who was a year ahead of me, we still talk about Stokesbury. And, I've been to Vimy Ridge with my daughter and to Beaumont Hamel, and I'm also, from my years in Los Angeles, the 3 years I was down there, I also began reading an awful lot of American history, and I became fascinated with the Battle of the Little Bighorn.
I've only ever heard of that, but I don't know much about it.
It's where General Custer.
Okay, another name that I've heard.
Yeah, well, it's where Custer and his men were annihilated by the greatest concentration of Sioux and Cheyenne warriors in the history of the Northern Plains. They think there might have been anywhere between 5,000 to 7,000 warriors. Wow. Anyway, he split his command, and his last message was, a big village, bring packs. Big village, hurry up. Anyway, they went over the hill and game over, right? I think it was 273 guys he lost. But in the Reno Battalion, 5 Canadians. There was a Canadian guy from Halifax who fought in that.
Oh, wow.
His name was Jimmy Weeks, and he showed up in a trooper's diary again in 1921. And I've been researching that guy. He's fascinating. Yeah, I just thought, boy, oh boy. He signed up in Boston in 1875, and it's 21 years old. There were a lot of laborers, a lot of miscreants and losers, and because America was so tired of the Civil War. And anyway, there he ended up being surrounded by those Cheyenne and Sioux for 2 days in 103-degree heat.
Well, that was the thing I picked up on reading your book, is you're very knowledgeable about indigenous happenings of the past, amongst other things. But
yes, there's something that's one of the hidden boons of my travels. My just random meetings with indigenous peoples. And they always give you a window on a world you otherwise wouldn't get, and you have to listen. They're they've got a great this great dry sense of humor. I remember years ago, my ex-wife and I were out in Tofino, long time ago. Would have been about 1986, I guess. Remember, I was out there shooting at Danger Bay, and so we took a week off. Anyway, we went way out to Tofino, and I went whale watching. And it was in the early days of whale watching, and there was a quackoodle dude and his young son who was running the whale watching trip, and I had a Minolta camera on around my neck. He took one look at the camera and he said, "Hey, what are you taking pictures for? Can't remember?" What a burn, eh? It's so fantastic. It was the best burn ever.
It's a good point, though.
It's a great point, and I put that story in the book too about being up outside a car cross in the Yukon. I'd taken a couple days to. They're so friendly up there. They gave me a cottage in Tagish Lake. This woman who owned a local store that I.
Oh, I read about
dropped
this part.
in. Yeah, it was wonderful. Wonderful experience.
You were going on a fishing trip or something,
No,
right?
I wasn't.
Oh, no.
That happened later. But I had 2 days in minus 30, 35 weather, crystal clear, beautiful blue. northern weather, and I went for a hike up in the mountains, and it had been very mild for about a week before I got there, and weird thaw in end of January.
Oh, I remember where this is headed now. Yeah.
And halfway up, I saw grizzly bear tracks that had been made in the slush the next day because we'd had a flash freeze the night before.
So these are recent.
Oh, yeah. He was out looking for a Mars bar.
Yikes.
Just to cut the edge on hibernation.
And you're alone walking
If he'd
around.
even gone in yet. And I was alone.
Yeah.
And it wasn't making any sound.
It's nerve-wracking.
So I started singing Battle Hymn of the Republic at the top of my lungs. I don't know why that one came into my head. It's good marching music, I guess. And I was singing it, went back to the car, and went back to the cottage that night and had a good sleep and woke up in the morning, and it was pitch black, and I was driving back to Whitehorse to catch my plane to Toronto. And it was about 6 a.m. in the morning, and one of those beautiful northern mornings where you can still see Orion's constellation hanging on the horizon, right?
Wow.
Beautiful. And I see this lone figure standing beside the road with its thumb out. I went, geez, that's a hitchhiker. And I stopped about 50 yards ahead. I said, well, if it's a serial killer, it's going to take him an hour and a half to get the butcher knife out from beneath the layers of Gore-Tex. So I backed up. I opened up the passenger side door, and the hood came back, and it was an ancient indigenous woman. She looks at me, and she says, oh, great vibes in here, eh? I said, where are you headed? She said, I'm going into the Sally Ann for church, but nobody was awake in town to drive me. I said, oh, come on, get in. I'll give you a lift. So she's in. She's talking to me. She said, what are you doing up here? I said, well, I had a couple days off from work, and I was at a cottage in Tagish Lake, so I went for a walk in the woods. And she said, by yourself? I said, yeah. She said, whoa, God was watching out for you. I said, why? She said, well, the mild weather got the bears woken up, and one of them's eating the dogs down by the lake and taking everything but the head. And I'm thinking, Jesus, remembering Quackootle lore, I'm thinking, I hope to God you're not a shapeshifter because you're really going to trash this rental car. I said, no, that's okay. I was singing Battle Hymn of the Republic at the top of my lungs, and every wolf or bear in 150 kilometers would have had their paws over my ears because I'm an awful singer.
Yeah.
And I wasn't on TV at the time or anything like that, no notoriety, just starting out. And she looked at me and went, you should be a comedian.
Little did she know.
But you know, there's a lot of wisdom in the country, and it presents itself to you when you follow your bliss. Those are the hidden boons that Joseph Campbell talks about, right?
Mm.
And whether it's somebody in Newfoundland giving you more directions and more information than you need, or that woman hitchhiking on a road outside of Carcross on a frigid day, or talking to someone in BC or Thunder Bay, or having windows on worlds with some kid who tells you about his life being adopted by Mennonites at a coffee shop at a Safeway and in Prince Albert. Or just hearing, Gaelic singing coming out of a tavern in Cape Breton, or the play of weather across the prairies in the raptor-rich lands, and you see sunbeams breaking through Bible picture clouds in southern Alberta that if Jesus surfed, he'd be riding them. These were very stirring moments in this road traveled.
You're reminding me actually of something in your book about when you were speaking to, I believe, an Indigenous man, because you had these recurring dreams of a bear chasing you up a tree, and that you had said that they had vanished and stopped appearing once you started doing stand-up, and he had told
Correct.
you that it was because you had found your calling.
Correct.
And I actually had a question about that, which was...
No, he owned a very funky folklore / antique store in St. Andrews, New Brunswick.
Oh, maybe that's why I assumed.
Yeah,
it was
no, it's
Indigenous.
okay, because we talked about bears there.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he had dreams all the time too until he started to paint. And his father was in the armed forces. He had a blue helmet there. And so he bounced around Germany, and he always dreamt about bears. And we talked about Germans and bears, and the bears feature very strongly in German folklore. Anyway, and he told me a story that a friend of his, she had a terrible run of luck. Her husband was killed in a car crash. She beat, she had battled breast cancer shortly after that, and other things kept happening to her house. And he said, "Do you still have those sketches?" And I guess her father was a soldier during the Nuremberg trials in 1946 in Germany. And he had a couple of Hitler's sketches. And he said, "Why don't you get rid of those paintings?" And she did, and things cleared up. Now, look, I don't spend a lot of time debating that supernatural, but things carry energy, and people carry energy. And I think a comedian from the stage channels the positivity.
Yeah.
Right. That's why when you're in a club and it gets combative, I just played Yucks in Ottawa. Howie runs a great club.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
And he's a great guy. And the first night was excellent. And the second night was combative. And I don't like having to survive on stage anymore and deal with drunks. It's been a long, long time since I've had to deal with noise and immaturity and a lack of respect for the art form.
Well, you had completely stopped doing the clubs for a while.
For a while. I haven't
correctly.
played the clubs in 25 years.
But you did it recently, though, right? You've gotten
Yeah,
back
just
into
for
it?
that. Yeah, and it was at the tail end. I have to say, it was at the tail end. Friday was an electric show, and then, but this one was at the tail end of a stand-up competition, and they'd been sitting there for several hours before I got on. But in terms of of when it's flowing and the positive energy of a room and the enthusiasm of Canadian audiences is remarkable. And I think too, I've been able to develop my voice in Canada simply because we're still a nation that appreciates the spoken word. I love the way words trip off the tongue and tickle the ear as well as the funny bone. And I mean, it's not entirely made up of these long alliterative runs in my show, because that's a flavor that would get redundant after a while. But it's, I don't think I would have had the time to explore that from the comedy stage in America, where I was talking to my buddy the other night. He came to the show in Peterborough, Ryan Belleville, an excellent comedian. Yeah,
he's a great actor too.
He's an excellent actor.
He's on Working Moms.
Yeah, a salt of the earth chap.
Yeah,
and a great compadre from the comedy trenches. And I asked him, because I know he lived in Los Angeles for a while, and when I lived there, I was an actor. I wasn't a stand-up. But I said, "What's the difference?" And he said, "Oh, it's combat there. You have to come out strong, and you got to rabbit punch them all the time, and you have to. It's more of a, I would say it's more of an aggressive form.
I mean, kind of
comedy. I mean, there are people who find their place. Right?
It lines up with what the stereotypes of America, though, to some degree.
It does. But then again, you get a guy. I was just watching a clip of Bill Burr on Conan, and I was killing myself. He's so great. Yeah. So honest, and I love the way he held. Oh gosh, it's early in the day here. I've been up since 6. What's his name? At the talk show, the famous guy, the writer, the stand-up.
Oh,
No,
he never did stand-up.
No.
Letterman?
No.
We'll just keep naming.
It'll come to me.
Leno?
No, he's got a show on HBO now.
Oh,
Bill Maher.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah. I mean, I love the one that he threw out at him. He says, "Come on, man. You're dressed like a guy who's trying to win a DUI conviction." It's just, he's just so sharp. And that working class chip in your shoulder, Boston attitude. But what he personifies more than anything else, for me anyway, is a contempt for power and status. And I mean, that was one of the original mandates of Second City when I started, was to speak truth to power. But I mean, it didn't. You can say that, but on those early Second City shows where I started, I mean, there was always a song, there was always a couple of goofy blackouts, but I did learn the fundamentals of comedy, the equation, the beginning, middle, and an end, to storytelling and to structure and to leaving space for the laughs and to act as well, right?
Yeah, because you were in some skits on SCTV, right? A few.
I did about 10 of them, but
early 80s?
I was on main stage on Second City. Started with the touring company in 1981 and left them in 85. And
I thought I saw something in your book that you got fired from.
I did get fired. Yeah,
what was
yeah.
that about? Was it just a budget cuts kind of thing? Or?
No, they fired a lot of people.
Oh, really?
I wasn't funny. I'd lost my mojo, man.
Oh, no.
Yeah. I guess, it's 44 years now? No, not quite. 40 years, I guess. And I just didn't. I had a perspective on my funny that I don't think fit with the cast dynamic. And I wasn't combative with them. I'm still friends with a couple of them. And stayed friends with some of them forever, like Donnie Lake and Bruce Peary, Deb McGrath. But the context of those days, I mean, we were all ambitious. We were all hungry young satirists wanting to get somewhere.
Chomping at the bit.
I mean, Mike Myers understudied me in the touring company.
Oh, no way.
Yeah, and he never got promoted from the touring company to main stage, which is why he went to England.
But I didn't know he had gone to England, huh?
Yeah, he went to England, started a comedy troupe with a guy by the name of Neil Malarkey, and then came back and got on the main stage. But he didn't get the smooth promotion. And they made hiring and firing mistakes. I'm not saying that that letting me go is a mistake, because that which tries to kill you will only make you stronger, to quote Nietzsche. And what you assimilated then was a belief that unless you're successful at Second City, you won't be successful, which is bullshit.
Yeah.
Right?
There are other avenues.
I stepped out of there and I ended up, getting commercials hand over fist. SCTV was still hiring me. And, I got a couple of movies.
I saw you were nominated
and
for
a pilot.
Best Supporting Actor in a movie.
I was,
Genie
long time ago. Yeah, for best, Something About Love. But then I was out of work for a long time. It became an game of attrition. And this is where you have to tip your hat to those folks who answer the call for acting, because you have to be willing to sustain the faith with this toxic level of rejection.
Well, that's one of the things that I found really surprising about the book, because I had seen you on TV for so long doing stand-up that I just kind of thought you had always been doing it. But I was really surprised to learn that you were in your late 30s, essentially, when you started doing stand-up.
Yes, sir.
Even more impressive. I also wanted to pause just briefly before we continue, because I did want to give a shout-out to Johnny Rogers. For helping
Johnny.
Facilitate things, and I want people to go check out his
Thanks,
show.
buddy.
Johnny Rogers Show on YouTube, and also Ron's website, www.ronjames.ca.
Yes, please.
Unfortunately, this will probably be going up late November when it looks like all your current dates on the website
That's
will
okay,
be wrapping
bro.
up, but
it's all right.
Check it out. I'm sure he'll have more down
I'll
the
be
pipeline.
back out again.
Yeah, so just wanted to have that out there.
Yeah. It's I came to the game late. I came back from Los Angeles after 3 years down there. I have to. Deb McGrath and another actress, Linda Cash, created this great little show called My Talk Show. Sold it to Ron Howard's company. It was affiliated with with Second City.
This is where you met William Shatner.
Yeah. William Shatner and Jim Belushi and everybody who was anybody came on initially, but then there was a big pogrom at Imagine. And I knew things were going south when the caterers changed from these really lovely hippie girls to ex-cons with homemade tattoos on their fists. And I thought, okay, something's afoot. So I was out of work for about 11 months. And that's when I started in order to maintain my sanity, well, I kept going out for auditions. I just wasn't getting any. And I started writing about my experiences down there and bringing them up to Ventura Boulevard coffee houses. And, that became my first one-man show up and down in Shaky Town.
Yeah.
One-man journey through the California dream.
This is mid-'90s, basically, right?
Mid-'90s. I got back in 93, and I put it up in 94.
But you didn't actually start touring till 99, I read. That was the first big tour you did?
Yes, sir.
And surprisingly enough, Centerpoint Theater, which you're going to be doing on Thursday, was on that tour.
First one I sold out.
So cool.
And that was when the market was still new.
Yeah.
I mean, it was virgin territory.
I want to say that theater might have been new around then.
Nobody was touring soft-seaters.
Yeah.
Nobody. And, I remember inviting Just for Laughs because I wanted to do a concert. I wanted to do a gala. And I remember one of their, bookers came to see the show, and I had just finished my second sold-out show at Centerpoint. And he said, "You do this?" I said, "Oh, yeah." He said, "All the time?" I said, "Yeah." And then before you know it, they were out, just launching. I mean, they had those ambitious tours with all those different sponsors. And then, but there was still room for everybody.
Yeah.
The marketplace over the since 2008, when the American economy collapsed. I mean, none of the Americans were coming up. When the American economy collapsed in 2008, every manager down there said, "Oh, you got a country to the north of you." Really? Where?
Oh, no.
And so, I'm on, I was 2 weeks on the other side of Seinfeld in Sydney, Nova Scotia, and Summerside, PEI.
Oh, wow.
A different snack bracket. He took the jet, I took the ferry to PEI. But still, I thought, wow, that's pretty cool. When you hear him talk, it's the same thing that keeps all of us out here, is that we just love hearing laughter and being responsible for it. I think that's the greatest joy I get.
Yeah.
My daughters and hiking in the woods and being back
But spreading mirth is up there.
But no, it's the life force.
Paramount. Yeah.
And when I finally found it, when I finally was able to make some kind of sense out of my life and the world I experienced, it began to channel this life force, and it's a wonderful feeling to be up there making people laugh, and everybody who answers this calling does it in their own way and hopefully gets the same results.
And it's never too late to start, which is another
Never.
thing
36 I was. My mentors were 10 years my junior.
And look at the legacy you've created since then.
Well, thank you very much. I had, and still have, a great producer, Terry McRae of Chantero Productions. And but also a long time ago, I had the faith of a different administration at the CBC. And they saw my one-man show, Slockout Klimke, saw my one-man show at Just for Laughs that Bruce Hill suggested I do. And I wrote The Road Between My Ears. And that became my first special. And I ended up writing 5 one-hour specials myself. I would lock myself in this funky old writing crib in the summer times. And we'd shoot it in the fall. And it would be on in December. And then we got the New Year's slot. And then we got the series. And then...
Ron James' show had New Year's shows for the first few seasons at least, too.
For all of them, it did.
All of them? Okay.
Yeah. But my standalone specials, and I ended up doing 4 more after that, and which I wrote with Paul Pogue and Scott Montgomery, my last 2 guys that had been in my writing room, exemplary writers who I said in my book made me a better comedian. And Pete Zedlacker came in at the last one when I lost my father, who was also very funny. Very funny. I did a wonderful interview with Bridget Pellerin for the Ottawa Citizen, which is in her online thing, but for some reason the editors didn't want to print it. I don't know. Anyway, I talked about humor being genetic. And, how you'll know these families who are all musical.
Yeah.
And you'll know the ones who always have these...
Visual artists.
Or sports.
Yeah.
Well, mine were funny. And, I sat in that kitchen counter when a pantheon of personalities crossed my mother's threshold. And I had family and friends and a wonderful home. And, there's still contention and stuff, but...
Well, your uncle sounded like quite the character, too, from the book.
Oh, yeah, Ronald. Yeah.
Your namesake, yeah.
Yeah. They could be tough, that crowd down there in CB. But I just had an environment growing up that was engaging. That's what I can say. I've had the great good fortune to have good people in my life.
It's an important component.
It is indeed, and that's not to say that it was all a bowl of cherries. I mean, this calling of stand-up, you have to be willing to suffer the lean years and the quiet and that crucible of amateur night in order to hone your craft.
Well, and even life on the road once you're thriving and strong presents different challenges.
But I'll tell you, before I worked with Terry McRae, I toured around the tip of Lake Superior. I booked myself. I went to Contact, and the theater owners saw me do 15 minutes of my show, and I booked half a dozen dates around the tip of Lake Superior in the dead of February. And I remember turning the corner in my Forerunner, and it was just one of those brilliant blue winter days. And I felt like I was driving into a canvas painted by the Group of Seven. It was a metaphysical drop kick to the senses. And I thought, this is where I belong. I enjoyed the road. It was an adventure. And, it's not about the grail at the end of the trail. It's what you make of the journey.
Yeah.
And that being said, the road is getting old, right? I was the second vehicle on a 4-truck fatality outside of Edmonton a year ago, November.
Oh, no.
Yeah, during a -40 whiteout. And this summer, coming back from Nova Scotia, I've got a little spot down there by the water, and my mom's still alive at 92, so you got to go
lovely.
back and visit that very funny Cape Breton. And I hydroplaned. I don't know if that's ever happened to you, but oh my God, it had happened.
Just lose all control.
It was the kind of biblical waters that would have given poor old Noah Woody. It just exploded. It exploded. And in the blink of an eye, I was spinning out, and I rolled on the shoulder, crawled out the passenger side window.
Jesus.
And I just had a scratch, but I totaled the vehicle. It took me a month dealing with Intact Insurance. And by the way, if anybody from Intact is listening, the accident didn't kill me, but dealing with you pricks damn near put me under the carpet. I'll tell you that.
Worst?
Just the worst. So patronizing, too.
I had an accident at work at the hospital where I messed up my back, and trying to get compensation for the shifts I missed, they'll do everything they can to try to get you to just turn tail and run.
Do you know what they did? They gave me the new vehicle. They couldn't ignore that, but they refused to insure me.
Oh,
after that, because they paid out, right? But that happened to me just a couple days before the huge floods in Toronto, where all those cars were caught on the Don Valley Parkway.
Yeah, I saw that.
Yeah, there was 17 cars that were destroyed, all sorts of parking lots.
Something similar in Montreal happened not too
Yeah.
long ago, too.
Yeah. But it's been a wonderful affirmation of purpose. And I went out on my own. And look, it's not a humble brag. I'm not trying to make myself into some kind of saint, but I had people to feed. And I didn't want to wait for somebody else to validate my life anymore, because I put 3 years of that in Los Angeles. And it takes a long time to plant your own flag and say, okay, this is the way it's going to be now. Yeah, and I think you continue to hit tipping points throughout life. And you have to recognize them as calls from the universe, as motivational moments. And, I'd gone to, more than 170 auditions, I imagine, in Los Angeles in 3 years. I mean, I ended up getting several commercials. I was a
I
spokesman.
saw you worked alongside Jim Varney in one of the Ernest
Yeah, I did one of
movies,
those films. I got that on the
Tommy
way.
Boy you were in.
I got that when I got back. And but you don't get resids in Canada. You get bought out. I did Tommy Boy in 19
I think that released in 95, so you probably filmed it sometime before.
I filmed it when I just got back, I think 94. But then when I started booking myself, when I got my first series, sold to Global Blackfly, I left and I didn't have an agent for 25 years. And the actors will tell you what's available for people. I mean, the only direction any network wants to see somebody with white eyebrows walking is out the friggin' door.
Oh.
So to go into a full theater and see them sitting shoulder to shoulder refutes the ageism that is so rampant.
Yeah, that Hollywood mindset.
It's not even a Hollywood mindset here. You can't even compare Canada to Hollywood.
Yeah, I suppose.
I mean, the only freaking thing I'm getting auditions for when I did get an agent is to play the cranky old farmhand in some mistletoe murders of a Hallmark thing. I don't want to do that shit. So
we film a lot of those here in Ottawa. We're known for the Christmas movies.
Man, they all look like Fox News anchors or real estate agents' faces you'd see in a billboard. I don't want to be in that stuff.
Doesn't feel genuine at all.
And when you can step on stage and you can rip Trump a new one, or you can talk about the changes in this world and validate your life on your own terms without some table full of pinheads.
Micromanaging everything.
Well, deciding whether or not you've got the right look for it.
Yeah.
The hell with you. This is real. This is tactile. That's why you got to tip your hat to stand-ups who are pulling a living from the big wide open in the country.
Yeah.
The young kids starting out, the ones in the clubs. And by the way, I'm old school in this respect. Any kid who's listening who thinks he's going to catch lightning in a bottle with some TikTok phenom. That's the same as the old Klondike gold rush, where just because the guy standing beside you got the lump of gold in his pan, it's only a matter of time for me. You still have to be good. You got to put your shoulder to the mule and plow. The first hammer a carpenter picks up, he doesn't build a mansion. He's got to hit his thumb a few times first, which is why I finally bought the birdhouse. But it's imperative that you understand it's about the work. Self-promotion, yes, and you have that advantage on social media now. You can be heard, you can be seen, you can film your sets.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, you have to step on that stage and deliver. You're 45 minutes, and if you move up to the soft seaters, you're 90.
I was going to say, you've done 2-hour shows, I was reading, in some instances.
That's mostly my standard.
Okay, so I want to stop you right there because that's a question that I had for you that even when I spoke with my dad about in preparation for this, he was wondering very much the same thing is how have you honed your memory to be so accurate and so commanding and so powerful on stage? Because you're not just remembering 2 hours worth of material, you're remembering 2 hours worth of intricate wordplay delivered at a pretty rapid fire pace, which is also just mounting the difficulty, I would imagine. So I wanted to know if there's any sort of tricks you employ to keep your brain able to do that.
The ones I remember the best, thank you, by the way. The ones I remember the best are the ones I can visualize. If I put myself in the action and I'm telling the story along with physicalizing it. Right.
Yeah. You got some cues that way. I see that.
Right. And you stand on stage at that point, and then you move over at that point. So that's, I guess that's acting, I guess.
That in itself takes so much memory, though, to remember, okay, I'm going to stand here, I'm going to do this sort of mannerism.
But, it's a muscle. And the more you do it, the better you get. That's why I get anxious in the summertime, because I'm not on the road.
Do those bear dreams come back when you...
No, they don't. And that's good. And preparation. That being said, with the world changing as fast as it is, nanosecond fast, And what was pertinent yesterday might be passé today.
Yeah, so true.
And so you're constantly writing and constantly trying to get that note, constantly trying to hit that note for the audience where even though they might not be that familiar, some of them, with what you're talking about, the way it's delivered can make it palatable for them. But also, you don't want to lose the room, right? You don't, and so I'm always got that ear to them because I've always had a great deal of respect for an audience member who makes the effort to buy a ticket, to get the sitter maybe, or, in my aging demographic, to get their younger son to drive them to the theater, and or get a day pass from the home. No, it's true. I mean, come on. It's one of the jokes I've got now. Everybody in my demographic is getting T-boned at the crossroads of midlife. Baby boomers are just 20 years away from roaming the home in our Led Zeppelin onesies, just a sing-along away from taking a stairway to heaven. But I've never taken the gigs for granted, ever. Whether I was playing a high school gymnasium in Dryden way back in 1999 or this big theater, the Center Point. It's all about the audience. You got to give them what they paid for. That's what Keith Richards said, and it's true. I don't know if he's quoting somebody else or not, but...
Well, you seem to give that same respect to even just conversations that you have with people, or else this book wouldn't be here.
Yes,
and again,
you.
A testament to your memory, but that was one of my questions about the book was, did you sort of compile these stories over time with the intention to eventually turn them into a book, or did that sort of dawn on you once you had amassed enough for a tome?
I think a long time ago, I in California, I certainly did nurture the idea of writing a book one day. But I was very diligent in keeping moleskins filled with notes in the days before social media.
So you were just a consistent journaler?
Yeah, on the road.
Okay.
And I had 2 bankers' boxes filled with moleskins. So I was able to refer to those. And then others were pulled from recent memory, like that story about Vern, the indigenous guy who was hitchhiking from Airdrie. I don't think you've got to it yet.
I don't think so. That doesn't sound familiar.
Yeah, and so I had to research that one. And I gave him a lift to Leduc from Airdrie when I was at the gas pumps. And I found out on the way up that he'd been in the 60s scoop and stuff, and he'd been sleeping by a dumpster there at the service station because, I don't know, he'd went on a bender and he lost his keys to his car. But everything he was telling me was true. I just had a feeling that everything he told me was true. And in the end, of course, I did get in touch with the guy who he worked with way up in Worsley on the border with BC, and I talked to him, and he wanted to get to see his nephew who worked as a cashier at River Creek Casino, and that was true. Anyway, it got scary at one point. So I had to research that one. But mostly it was gleaned from moleskins that I kept, and some of it was from my act, very small percentage from my act. I'm going to write another one, given this precipice that North America and the world is on. And especially if the Tangerine Genie pulls a victory out of his ass in
God, let's hope not.
In America. It's a dark day, bro.
Yeah.
And it's not something to be frivolous about. 2025 is a fascist manifesto. And when you've got the highest general in the land saying this guy is a fascist to the core, and he is.
Well, when Trump himself is saying that if he gets reelected, you won't have to vote anymore.
Listen to him. Listen to them. And nobody listens. I finished a book by Ruth Ben Guyot called Strong Men. And she took a trajectory from Mussolini to Hitler to Franco to Pinochet to Berlusconi. And Trump is definitely cut from the cloth of Berlusconi and Mussolini. And everything these guys say, I mean, Hitler wrote Mein Kampf, right? They thought he could control them. The Prussian aristocracy thought they could control him. Just like the last time, they thought that once Trump gets into the White House, he'll become presidential. Whoever thought that must have been smoking
No. He's
whatever they keep on ice beside those aliens in Nevada. No. And look, I just read the New York Times today. His mandate is retribution. He's not going to fuck around.
Yeah.
And he's got an awful lot of sympathies in the armed forces. And look, we live next door to them.
Yeah. You can't just turn a blind eye. It's going to affect us.
Well, I think we're being very naive.
Yeah.
And I think we're sleepwalking through this. And, I mean, look, he's basically said that countries who don't pony up their 2% of NATO deserve to be invaded by Putin. We haven't ponied up our 2%. What if that hairless, feral-eyed mutant comes fucking marching over the North Pole riding a polar bear stegosaurus hybrid, chewing on a baby's foot in front of his nuclear-juiced legions? Jesus, he's going to be eating a steak at the Salisbury House in Winnipeg by noon.
Taking all our fresh water probably, too.
Well, this is the thing. I used to have a joke about that. And can I curse on this,
Oh,
by the way? Okay, good.
We're already there.
Yeah, we are. I used to have a joke about that. You know, I remember when Mulrooney and those guys signed the free trade agreement, and we gave our water to America. You know that, right?
I did not know that.
That if Arizona runs Dead Gulch dry, which it's about to, and of course, you know, you got to keep that whorehouse of Vegas lit up in neon, right? You know, you're just going to hear a big sucking sound going to the States. But I said to them, I used to have this joke. I said, sure, you know, America comes up, we're going to have your water. Sure, you can have our water, but you have to answer a skill testing question first. What's that? Do you think it's going to hurt? Huh? Well, you go fuck yourself. So it's remarkable how his absolute amoral defiance. And look, don't even has led him to this. And don't even get me going on these Christian nationalists. I mean, these are the same people, okay? These are the same people who profess allegiance, right, to a peace-loving, leper-healing hippie who roamed the back roads of Galilee with his 12 bros looking like the opening act for the Oak Ridge Boys and traded it all in for a coup-inciting, billionaire, bully bullshitting pseudo real estate magnate, sexual predator, who when they're not soiling themselves with a simpleton's bliss at a Trump rally, while their Tangerine Genie barks out some like a dementia-addled word salad.
Well, I was going to say, it's quite hypocritical how people were, rightfully so, criticizing Biden for a lot of his senior moments. But we've got Trump here on, at least I counted 8 different occasions, talking about Hannibal Lecter as if he's a real person.
He's a simp. You know what? The Secret Service are, if he wins, the Secret Service are a week away from having to chew his food. I mean, right? No, they are. And this is something that genuinely... I don't know what game plan Canada has, but what if it swings fascist down there? Right? I mean, the only other place this American id belongs is being sedated by the orderlies in the closed ward. It's remarkable what he's done and what his coterie of lick-spittle sycophants have done, and how the amoral Republican Party, has sold their soul to MAGA. I just finished a book by Stuart Stevens called The Conspiracy to End America. It's fascinating because he's a former Republican operative. I mean, who helped get George Bush elected. I will say, though, it is always amazing now that the former Republicans who had integrity, who helped Ronald Reagan get the power and George Bush get the power, always fail to mention Iraq, right? Iraq, a trumped-up invasion based on fraudulent weapons of mass destruction, when the only weapons of mass destruction, really, were Bush, Cheney, and Rumsfeld. Right? I had to laugh when Putin was drawn up on war criminal charges 2 years ago. I thought, oh, great. If you can get Bush, Cheney, and Wolfowitz in there, they're going to have enough for a pickleball game at The Hague. But that mention, that context is even obsolete now, it seems. I mean, everything, people's memories are so short.
Yeah.
And
that's got to be because of social media.
Of course it is.
Everything is so.
Of course it is.
Fed instantaneously.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, look at Facebook. I mean, it's redefined the meaning of friendship.
Yeah.
A friend used to be somebody who'd help you move a couch on a rainy Saturday afternoon.
Yeah.
Now a friend, according to Planet Zuckerberg, is somebody you've never met who likes the photo you posted of the Caesar salad you had in Ottawa for lunch. Yeah. But look, it's not all evil. It's great for promotion. It's great for my tours. I just did that CTV interview this morning, and it's lovely to be able to promote those things and not have it lost in the ether. And unfortunately, it's essential. But mark my words, when it comes time for me to retire, I'm off the grid, bro. I'm off the grid.
Getting out of there.
Yeah, I am.
Cabin in the woods somewhere?
Well, no, I'm just not going to be on it. I'm just not.
Oh, you mean you're off the digital grid? Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I thought you meant like move out.
Oh, yeah. Although
obscurity.
I watched that show Alone. Do you ever watch that?
I've heard of it.
Oh,
it's so
good. It's so good.
Yeah, I want to check that out.
It's so good. Not that I want to be dropped into Grizzly Bear Alley or something like that with only the essential tools to survive.
I was going to say, do they get supplies?
Yeah, they do, but it's very rudimentary. No guns.
No, nothing super useful.
Bow and arrow. They end up eating a lot of squirrels and fish if they can catch them.
And some of them have to be kind of airlifted out of there when they lose their marbles, I would imagine. So not everyone can cut it.
Some people punch out. They call in. And I just watched one the other night. Buddy broke his leg like the second day he was there.
Jesus.
And but it's fascinating. It's amazing. And I'm sure that the fascination with bushcraft and cutting out from the world has an awful lot to do with the subtextual desire to get the hell away from all the noise, this cacophonous, nonstop need to feed the dopamine hit.
Well, we had sort of addressed this a few episodes ago because we had taken a long hiatus in the summer that was kind of unintentional, and I had gotten to a point where I was like, do I want to still keep doing this? And ultimately, I realized I love this. I love this part of it.
Yeah, it's fun, isn't it?
Doing all the posting on social media and everyone wants to be heard all the time.
All the time.
I'm getting sick of trying to be heard. I am getting to the point where I don't care anymore. I'm like, I don't want to compete with.
Isn't that interesting?
You know what I mean?
Everything all the time. The only I care about the work.
Yeah.
Right. And we're measured too by the American success, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you've got your wonderful podcast here with your dad.
Oh, thank you.
And then, you read that Joe Rogan was signed on for $110 million so he can build up this manosphere and call Trudeau a communist. Come on, numbnuts. He's not a commie. I mean, that's the thing with Canadian healthcare, right? Americans think you're a communist when I just think we're compassionate.
Yeah. I'll take the free healthcare any day. Thank you very much.
Me too.
Yeah, I kind of.
I mean, these are the same guys that can foist a $4 trillion war for a facelift on Iraq. But if poor old Mrs. Katowski in Buffalo needs a new hip, she's on her own.
She's in financial ruin now.
She's done.
Yeah.
She's done. And it's going to get worse because cruelty is now currency. And that's the thing with fascism. And you're going to be surprised the number of Canadians who will silently acquiesce to that.
Well, I feel like I'm seeing that shift already compared to when I was a kid. And if Poilievre gets in, I have to imagine it's just going to bolster that.
He's the kind of guy in grade 7 before a long weekend said, "Teacher, you forgot to give us homework." And tell me that he's not going to be a quick populist quizling when Trudeau comes up.
Yeah, well, I don't think we had...
He'll be a suckle.
I don't think we had many...
He's my MP.
Oh, is he?
Yeah.
Where?
He's my MP.
Down...
I'm in Stittsville. He's in Carleton Place.
Carleton Place.
I fall into his writing, so he's my MP.
How rabid are they for him there?
I don't have a feel for that, but he sure sends out a lot of flyers to the houses saying, "Tell me what you think," and all that.
Well, he's banking off of how much people have learned to hate Trudeau. Even the people who voted for him are not super impressed.
Well, Trudeau's regal arrogance has been his downfall.
And anytime he goes off script,
it's awful. It's awful. Yeah, and but I voted for the Liberal Party, not for Katie Telford. right? I didn't vote for the Prime Minister's office. And they have absolute authority. They really do. That's why the MPs can't get any questions into Trudeau. They got the firewall up. It was the same thing with Harper, right? And Pierre Poilievre's promised to gut the CBC. I see that Catherine Tate just left, and they've appointed the head of the CBC, this woman from Quebec. So good luck, Pierre, because Quebec holds Canada by the cojones. I find that rather ironic, don't you?
Yeah, a little bit.
That when Pierre Poilievre wanted to trounce Trudeau about a month ago, Lalonde said he's not going to get my vote because he wants to be prime minister so bad he can smell it. And I thought, boy, there's an irony. The province that wants to separate from Canada is the one that's going to save us from that guy.
Well, yeah, I guess I doubt we had many right-wing fans of the show, but whatever we had, I'm sure they're gone now because we've staked our claim here as
Fans of what?
Well, fans of right-wing politics.
Well, they don't belong.
Good riddance. Yeah.
Look, you're going to have to call. You're going to have to call some audience members. I mean, after I spoke out about the convoy, right? In fact, I got a threat. I spoke out about the convoy, and
lovely folks, aren't they?
from Diagilon, Diagalon. Those are the guys that had the weapons in the Coutts, Alberta, and
the ones that tried to cross the border or something.
Yes, man. They want to kill Mounties there by a disgruntled former armed forces guy. Mackenzie founded that, I guess. And anyway, that was the logo that was up. And they said, don't come back to Pembroke if you know what's good for you. I remember thinking, not going to be an issue.
Well, you know what? Let's shift from this heated political talk because I do have a fun little.
I love talking politics, man.
Oh yeah, we can return to it. It's just there's something I don't want to forget to do because I thought it would be fun. Because from reading your book and watching you have such a robust vocabulary.
Thank you.
And my father is someone that I also look to often, even while doing this show. If I use a word and I'm wondering did I use that correctly, I can always turn to him for validation.
Oh, wonderful!
So
Excellent.
I've prepared a little game here. Where I'm gonna throw a word one at a time to each of you, and if you can tell me the definition, you'll get a point.
All right.
If you can't, the other person has a chance to steal.
Okay.
Okay. So we'll start. I assume you're going to get all of these, but absquatulate. You know that one? I did not.
You know what? That happened to me once, but the doctor gave me some ointment and cleared it right up.
I think that's a forfeit on that one then. Do you know that one?
Yeah, it's a double forfeit. I've never heard that word in my life.
To leave or abscond with something.
Okay.
Dad, this one's for you, I guess. Argle bargle. Do you know what an argle bargle is?
I've heard it before. An argle bargle, it's just like a nonsensical statement is what I want to say. It's like a lot of mishmash of words to try to throw you off.
Yeah, the definition I have is a loud row or quarrel.
A large row or
row
or quarrel.
Yeah, in what language? Urdu?
Yeah, well, I don't know. I found these online.
I don't think I nailed it well enough.
A bumbershoot.
A what?
A bumbershoot.
A bumbershoot.
This is seemingly a slang term.
I know this one.
Okay, so
A bumbershoot.
you might get a chance to steal
I think
a
I
point
do
here.
anyway.
I think that's something from 1820s London.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
1820s London, and it would be a tool that a chimney sweep would use.
Close, I think. I think it's an umbrella.
Yeah, that's what I had. Okay, so we got a point for you there, Dad. Diaphanous.
Oh yeah,
that's a good one.
Yeah, diaphanous is just like sheer. It's like if
Yes.
she's in a diaphanous gown, you're a lucky guy.
It says so thin as to transmit light.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
Ron, ecdesiast.
See, I could have done diaphanous, but what's this one?
Ecdesiast.
Ecdesiast.
I believe that ECDYSA or SIAST. Ecdesiast. I had never heard of this one. I tried to find ones that I had not a clue.
Ecdesiast.
Ecdesiast, yeah.
Ecdesiast.
You'll probably laugh when you find out.
You know what that
it
is? That's a definition of a podcast host who tricks you at the end.
No,
What
it's an
a-
exotic dancer.
What a friggin' ecdesiast.
Oh, really?
Apparently, it's a stripper. Yeah.
Oh, yes. Let's go to see the
I know, it
ecdesiast.
sounds too
Yeah,
fancy.
class it up.
Shall we, gentlemen?
Okay, well-
Boo. Yes, we'll have a little bit of gin and then we'll go see the ecdesiast.
Yeah, it
I hope
sounds
she
way
sits
too-
on my lap.
I'll give you another one then. Gazump.
Gazump.
Oh,
That's the sound a giraffe stool makes when it hits the African veld.
That's probably accurate. Do
I
you know this one?
I think so. Like when someone's been gazumped, it's in Britain again. I think it's something to do with real estate. They have a really weird real estate system there, and you think you've got the property and all that, and then you turn up sort of on the day or whatever to take possession. They go, "Oh, sorry, you've been gazumped. Somebody else came in with more money or something at the
Yeah.
last minute."
This is accurate.
What?
Yeah, I'm impressed you got that.
Jesus, I'm getting burned here,
Yeah,
man.
sorry. I'll keep throwing them.
Yeah, I
down.
bet you're sorry.
I'm a little older.
I'm not keeping score really.
I bet you're sorry.
Inimical.
Inimical.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
You know that one or no?
Yes.
Inimical.
That's a standout person. Inimical. Just absolutely standout and inimical.
Here it
Yeah.
says tending to obstruct or cause harm.
No.
Oh.
No? Okay, well maybe that's inaccurate. Inimical. That's what I had.
Would you agree to that? Inimical.
No, but
Inimical. That's
I'm-
not obstruction. An inimical board. They're absolutely an inimical individual.
I don't
I
know.
don't-
That's
I
what
don't
I got. We can always
Yeah.
fact check this.
All
later.
right.
Mawkish. MAWKISH.
Yeah. That's like if someone's a mawkish person, they're kind of withdrawn within themselves, down and gone from an appearance perspective. They're non-threatening, that sort of a thing. I think. No.
Maybe these are all bogus then, because this says very sentimental or emotional.
Oh,
If someone's
actually,
mawkish.
I think that's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is right.
Yeah.
Anyway, I've got a couple more here, but
Go ahead, man. I got to win one. Obstreperous?
Yes.
Obstreperous. Yeah, obstreperous. That son of a bitch is
You pronounced it better than I did.
Obstreperous, yeah, that's somebody who is unmoving.
Yeah, noisily and stubbornly
Good, great,
defiant.
done.
There you go. A pettifogger, anyone?
No clue.
A pettifogger is a person who tries to befuddle others with his speech.
Oh, boy. Like
So I
you.
guess gaslighting.
Like you've been doing here with this
Gaslight.
contest.
Yeah.
Spurious?
Spurious, yes.
Yeah,
I know what spurious is.
Yeah, if you have a spurious thing, it's like a
Insult.
I would say insult. I was going to say nonsensical. Doesn't make sense.
Here it says plausible but false.
Yeah.
Oh, there you go.
Okay, and the last one
We're
is
close.
vituperate.
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 I know that one.
I know.
Vituperative. It's, I know the word, the definition.
You know what? It
Vituperative.
makes me think of a frog's tooth. They have
Surly. Someone who's surly. Vituperative individual.
Spread negative information about. Yeah.
There's a thing though in frogs.
I'd give you that one, yeah.
Frogs anatomy. There's something I think called like a vituperous tooth.
Weird.
That's where I went anyway in my head. But
Interesting. Well, I would actually throw to you at this point because my dad often has questions for the guest, and I like to give him a chance to chime in here. You got something there, Dad?
yeah, just a couple of things I wanted to say. One was I wanted to say I think you've got one of the best Robert De Niro faces
Oh, thank you.
I've ever seen.
Yeah, he
Thank you
told me
very
about it. I
much.
have not seen this.
Yeah. That's it.
Yeah, he wanted you to maybe
haven't-
straight to the camera. You're single
No,
here.
no, this way, other way.
Well, I think
This-
he's getting in
this-
character.
which one?
Maybe
That one?
This one.
That one right there?
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's your single.
Okay. Hey, Trump.
Holy shit.
Trump. How you doing?
Oh my God.
You're dead.
That's uncanny.
It's good.
Yeah.
It's right.
I
up
also
there.
do a version of Bob because he shows up in so many different movies. I also do a version of him as an Inuit elder.
Okay.
Yeah? Katina kwa kwa kinichita kwa.
So, that's my dad had wondered if when you're speaking like that, is that gibberish that you're just making sound?
Oh, I had
completely
I had
plausible, or-
friends who were Inuit years ago, and I used to make them laugh when I try to speak their language, and
Okay.
they used to set me up to try to say it. But I will say something. I used to have that joke. I said, I talked about global warming. I said, animals are showing up in the Arctic like Noah's Ark dropped them off at the wrong beach. And that's ticking the Inuit people off because it takes those folks a week to name something they know. And I go on and on and on. Rabbit. And white audiences in southern Canada go quiet because they see it as politically incorrect. And I think it is these days. But, truth be told, 15 years ago, I did that joke on stage in Inuvik. I was up there for a big convention and related to the Mackenzie Valley Pipeline and all those other things, right? There were Gwich'in, Inuit, and Dene there, and they were dying. They were laughing.
Eating it up,
and this
yeah.
Inuit dude came up to me afterwards and he said, "Hey, brother, you speak the tongue better than me." Isn't that great?
Yeah, that
yeah,
must
I
be
love that. I love
refreshing
that.
to hear.
I love that.
So the other thing I was curious about was when I was watching your special, I was
Which one was that?
The one about going out west.
Quest for the West.
Quest for the
That
West.
was my second one of my favorites.
Yeah, I liked it. It was really
Thank
good.
you very much.
Two things in there actually got to me, but the one that made me sort of laugh out loud was the black fly one. You're playing some guy who was encountering black flies.
Oh yeah, that's a classic.
Yeah.
No, that was I did that bit in West Coast Wild.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Maybe
that was one of my first jokes where I'm just being beset by black flies and I'm slapping the shit out of myself.
So I was laughing out loud at that one, I got to say.
Thank you. Thanks.
But the thing I wanted to ask you generally about your comedy was I was unaware of the degree of physicality in your comedy.
Oh, yes.
And I want to know, I especially love when somebody's like being taken out by the undertow or something, and you kind of dance back and forth across the stage.
Oh, yeah.
Hilarious.
Thanks for that memory. I haven't done that in years.
Jeez, it made me laugh.
Oh, thanks.
But my question around it was, at what point did you realize that you wanted to bring physicality into it, or did it just sort of naturally happen over time?
It just naturally evolved when I began to act stuff out. I've always been physical, but the vast majority of comedians are stand and deliver, and I think the physicality of the of the story, when you can add physicality to a story, it brings it into another level.
Right.
Yeah, and but you feel the aches and pains a hell of a lot more these days, don't you? Right.
Not dancing across the stage quite as much. Yeah.
I remember when I started, I used to have after the show, I'd have a couple of beer and a drink of scotch, and now it's a couple of Tylenol and a bottle of Gatorade. So things change.
Yeah, I was wondering if you were a sober living type person, just with your memory being so impeccable.
Yeah, I don't overdo it.
Yeah.
I used to. There was always a tendency from time to time when you first started to be a little groggy with the show, and I would never want to compromise the integrity of my performance. And I did that a couple of times, and I did it once at Just for Laughs after a great set, but then I had my gala the next night, and the gala didn't go as well as my great set did at Club Soda, and I thought, no, take her easy, man. And but I try to lead a healthy life, I exercise, I've got a nice bike.
I had seen mention
bike
of
a lot.
you, I think it was from the book, doing magic mushrooms at a folk concert. But that's probably back in the heyday.
Long time ago.
Long time.
But
how do you feel? I wanted to know about the way things are headed with magic mushrooms now being pseudo-legal. We've got these stores like one just
everywhere.
over here.
Well, it's in the show. I said, magic mushrooms are the new rage. Apparently they cure PTSD. Last time I did magic mushrooms was 37 years ago. I got PTSD.
That's good.
Because mushrooms are the guest that'll never leave. You have too many pints at the pub the night before, you can shake it off the next day with a couple of cups of coffee in the kitchen. You try that with magic mushrooms, you go to the kitchen, there's a 3-foot Technicolor rabbit sitting by the toaster, having a smoke, and she wants to chat. And they are also a formidable laxative. Magic mushrooms.
You get gut rot.
Oh, no, formidable. I get up to use the bathroom, and what I shat, jump from the bowl and chase the cat. So it's just something that you just have to... Yeah, but you know what? I got some buddies who were in Afghanistan and Bosnia, and ketamine has worked wonders for them, and as have the shrooms and counseling and such.
I've heard some of these as treatments as well for people in accepting death, people in palliative care.
Yeah,
Apparently really helps ease them
I just
into
listened to Michael Pollan's book, State of
he's
Mind,
great.
I think. Yeah, he is great. And lots of arcane information in there, but it's interesting, It's interesting. I've known several people who swear by them.
Well, it's just a bummer that for so many decades they were so contraband and that it wasn't even something that scientists could really explore.
Well, yeah, exactly.
full
And
benefits
a
of.
lot of it had to do with the counterculture in the 60s and all those bad acid trips and,
Yeah.
you know, the way they vilified Timothy Leary and such and, you know, the hard come down on drugs that America had. And
Reagan's whole push of-
Reagan's whole thing, right? And,
This is your brain on drugs.
Right, but, you know, it's pretty amazing that right, I mean, marijuana was taboo for years, but, you know, fermented barley that makes you sucker punch a bouncer, we're okay with that.
Oh yeah. Even as a kid smoking weed, I remember thinking, this is nowhere near as bad as alcohol. All the bad stuff I'm seeing is always when people are too drunk.
Absolutely it is. I mean, I remember we always, you know, used to get a bag of weed before we'd go on a canoe trip when I was growing up. And we picked we picked up some Maui Wowie
Okay.
at a
Some strong stuff.
yeah, very strong at a tavern before we went canoeing in the Musquodoboit River back home back in the late 70s and had a few super tokes at the vehicles. And we put the canoes in the river under a full moon. We paddled for 5 hours, okay? When we crawled from our tents in the morning, we could still see our cars.
Oh my God. Quite the voyage.
Good days. The
that's
bulletproof days of halcyon youth. We had a lot of us had a good time.
I wanted to ask you one thing I didn't want to forget, just because you've been so many places through this country, is what is a place in Canada that you would still love to visit that you're surprised you haven't been yet?
Nunavut.
Oh, never.
No, I haven't been to Nunavut.
Okay, well, there's a bucket list for you.
And Ryan Belden and I might be doing a gig up there in April or May. And
I know some friends, past guests of the show, that have done the Arctic Comedy Festival up there.
oh yeah,
Like Janelle Niles, an Indigenous performer, a couple other people. I think maybe Celine.
oh I know Janelle.
Yeah,
she's wonderful.
She was the, I think, 9th guest ever on this show.
Was she?
She's
Yeah.
returned at least once.
Yeah,
since
she's
then.
come to see me at Yucks both times, and
Well, she's got that Gotland comedy, which features all.
well, she's
Indigenous-
excellent.
Yeah.
Yeah, Nunavut, I think. Yeah.
I'm sure she'll be loving that that's on film. The great Ron James giving kudos to her, so I'll make sure to
Oh,
send
good.
her a little clip of that.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask you because in your 99 special, I saw you mention Sergeant Rock and also the Thor's hammer on your bladder bit. That one I could have chalked up to just mythological history buff, but when I heard Sergeant Rock, I said, okay, this guy must have read comics growing up.
I did, yeah.
I wanted to know if you had a favorite comic book character and also maybe what was the geekiest thing about you.
I would have to say the favorite comic book character growing up, like the vast majority, was Spider-Man.
Yeah, so relatable.
I mean, he was just so relatable and just so cool.
Such an underdog character, too. Always
Yeah, he
can't
really
pay
was.
his bills. And
Yeah. And, of course, we had the Spider-Man cartoon in Canada, right?
Yeah.
Spider-Man,
Now in color. Yeah.
Spider-Man does whatever a spider can.
I watched those as a kid, too. They were reruns at that point.
Spins
but-
a whip. And it was always the same footage of the rhino running toward the TV.
Or him swinging from the clouds inexplicably.
Yeah, always. So Spider-Man. But I read a lot of war comics, you know.
Okay.
But
Nick Fury and
Sergeant Rock.
Sergeant Rock.
Yeah,
okay.
because that's where the ad was for the two-man sub. That's where that came from.
Yeah, I remember that bit.
Right?
Yeah.
You could see the two-man sub in the back of the Sergeant Rock comic book, good for up to under 16 feet of water. Order void in Canada. The only thing you could get here in the winter was pneumonia.
Well, next to the X-ray glasses and all these other.
But they had Sergeant Rock, and then they had the bit at the end. They had the few pages at the end that was a shorter comic. It was Jeb Stewart and the Haunted Tank.
Oh, I've never heard of that. My
Right?
dad's a big DC guy.
And then it was Tomb of the Unknown Soldier, or The Unknown Soldier. Yeah. And I'd love to get some of those old Canadian comic books from the 40s, though, you know? Because Canada had its own superhero at the time during the 40s.
Captain
right?
Canuck or something, maybe?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah. Major Maple Leaf or something like that. Okay, well, I had also read that you got a 7.5 pound moose steak given to you after a show, and I was curious if there were any other strange gifts that were given to you by audience members that could
Oh my
maybe
gosh!
rival
well,
that.
not strange ones that I remember, but that was a good one. That was my first tour around Superior. 7.5 pound sirloin tip moose roast. You don't get those perks playing Las Vegas. I used to say.
I love that
somebody
you
gives you
specified-
somebody gives you a 7.5 pound. Somebody gives you a brown paper bag dripping blood in Las Vegas. It's probably got the head of a Teamster in it. That's how that one went.
I love that you specified 7.5 pounds as if a 7-pound moose steak wouldn't be impressive in
Well,
its.
yeah, once again, it's what the internal ear hears.
Yeah.
It's like Groucho said, 27 is a funny number, 24 is not.
Okay.
I think he said that, but it's true. It's just the way the ear hears things. Maybe it's the second syllable coming at the end.
The
I don't know.
musicality of the language.
I haven't looked into the mechanics of it, but specificity is very, very important.
Okay, well, I mean, I don't want to keep you too long. I feel like I've had you here a while. I could go on all day, so it's really on your...
Well, I'm 66 years old, and I've had a coffee and almost 3/4 of a bottle of water, so the old fella's got to have a squirt.
There you go. So let's wrap it up with the season 5 question we've been asking everybody this season, which is, if you could go back in time and relive a memory, you can't change the past, you can't alter the future, but just to re-experience a memory that you treasured, what would that be and why?
I would have to be, right now, I would say partridge hunting with my father when I was 14 years old down in Wallace on one of those idyllic autumn days. And he said, geez, Ronnie, look, there's 5 partridge in that tree. And it was the first year that my uncle had given me his 16 gauge. And we dropped 2 partridge from that tree. And we went down to the bottom of the tree, and we could only find 1. And for years, Dad would say to me, where in the hell do you think that other partridge went, Ronnie?
Nice running joke.
And he was very funny. Lost him 7 years ago. I miss him dearly.
I'm sorry.
That's okay. I mean, we had a tough last 5 years. And but I talk about him a lot in my show because it's a way of keeping his spirit alive, right?
Well, I think it's beautiful how quickly you answered that question because it was right at the forefront of your brain, it seemed.
Yeah, it was a great day.
Well, now you can understand my joy for being able to do this show with my dad, right?
Yes, I sure do.
Yeah.
It's wonderful that you're friends, and I was pals with mine. I took him fishing to Haida Gwaii when he was 75 years old. I flew him to Toronto. I was making some decent bread then, and we drove down through the Kootenays, and we went in this Ainsworth Hot Springs in the Kootenays, and he had bad arthritis, and the hot springs are 103 degrees. We stayed in for about 45 minutes, and we came outside, and we shared a 6-pack in the parking lot.
That's awesome.
And he was funny right up until the very end. I'll tell you this one, right? He was always comical, man. He could really tell a joke, right? And my mom's, of course, still funny to this day. And we brought him into palliative care. He had a renal cell carcinoma and COPD, a perfect storm. And it was breaking him down. Anyway, we had to bring him into palliative care, and I'd driven my mother and sister back home. They'd been sitting sentry duty. I said, I'm just going to go back, see how he's doing. And so I just went back in, and just as I was going in, the nurse was administering a catheter tube to the end of his Johnson. And he looked up at me and he said, Ronnie, am I ever happy to see you? He points at his crotch and said, look what this beautiful young nurse just picked up for me at Canadian Tire. He had 24 hours to live, and he was still looking for a laugh. And
That's
quite
wonderful.
frankly, that's the way I'd like to go out.
Well, I now see another benefit for your masterful memory that you can collect and reminisce on all those great memories of your dad.
Thank you very much. Yeah.
Thank you for coming. This was wonderful.
This is a great chat, and I hope I didn't alienate any of your listeners with my
I don't think we've
politics,
got
but
tons of right-wingers.
I just think it's a time to really care about it.
Yep. I
And
agree.
to make sure that these fumes of totalitarianism don't find purchase in the Canadian soul, because I think we've always prided ourselves on being a nation of generosity.
Yep.
And
Amen to that.
I've heard the soul note singing at the far points of frontier from Corner Brook to Courtney Comox, and it's a wonderful country. And PP can bark that it's broken all he wants and have those little videos of him putting the puzzle together, but it's a different friggin' game, bro. Running a country when you have nobody to blame.
So true.
All right?
Yeah.
And look, the sheen's gone off the pumpkin with the Silver Spoon Prince. There's no doubt about it. He said, it's not my job to be popular. Well, judging by what's happening now, I'd say you're hitting it out of the park. But they kept this afloat during CERB, and interest rates are down now. And, right, I mean, your heart always goes out to a politician when it's time for him to leave and he's staying. And I mean, I'm surprised that, Trudeau doesn't have a food taster. There's so many knives in his back now. Oh. And he wasn't perfect, but nobody's perfect. And I know one thing, that right-wing populism despite its claims to have simple solutions to complex problems, is just a tweak of the lizard brain. Democracy takes work. And I think everybody's looking for shortcuts, and there are none. But look, I'm 66. Life is all about the long haul. And so is the preservation of democracy. And I think you got to be willing to fight for it in the right way, with debate, with consensus, with understanding, with intelligence, not with quick fixes. That's my little rant.
It's a great note to go out on.
Thanks, brother.
I'll give you a high five. That's how we end it.
See you
for
later,
stopping by.
everybody. Thanks for
Bye-bye.
tuning in. Have a good life.